This was a weekend full of violence as two mass shootings a half world apart really dominated the headlines. Joining us now is NBC's Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, what do we know about these two scenes? You know, you had the one at Bondi Beach in Australia, and then you had Brown University in Rhode Island a little closer to home.
Yeah, I mean, if folks had kind of unplugged this weekend, it's really a difficult morning to be plugging back in and hear about this. The campus of Brown University in Rhode Island was absolutely shaken by a shooting inside a classroom at an engineering and physics building on campus. 2 people were killed. 9 others were injured when a gunman opened fire inside that classroom. And over the weekend, there had been a person of interest taken into custody, but then overnight, investigators in Rhode Island said they were releasing that person, saying there was some degree of evidence that pointed to that individual, but it needed to be corroborated, confirmed, and ultimately evidence led to a different direction. There's been some security video released showing a person that's believed to be the shooter, but you can't see their face, so that is part of the problem here. And investigators are racing now to track down the gunman, while the mayor of Providence said that there had been no credible specific threats to the Providence community, and they're trying to ease fears in that community. And then across the world, in Sydney, Australia, there was this unbelievably tragic shooting on Bondi Beach, which is one of the most popular tourist sites in Australia, and there was a Hanukkah celebration underway for the first day of Hanukkah on the beach when 2 suspects, a father and son, opened fire. They're being accused of terrorism targeting Jewish people. The 50-year-old suspect, who was the father, was fatally shot at the scene. His 24-year-old son is in custody and hospitalized with critical injuries. And you've probably seen that video now of a bystander who disarmed one of the gunmen and is being hailed a hero.
We've also heard from President Trump on both these attacks. How is he characterizing these shootings?
Yeah, so he offered, of course, his condolences specifically to the 2 people who were killed at Brown and to the 9 that were injured, telling them to get well fast and paying his deepest regards and respect from the United States of America. That's how he put it. And then on the Bondi Beach shooting in Australia, he emphasized the increase in anti-Semitic attacks that we've seen really around the world, in this country as well as around the world, and, you know, stressed that that cannot be allowed to happen, something we're hearing from a number of lawmakers on Capitol Hill as well, who've been criticizing the amount of anti-Israel protests that there were in Australia, have been in Australia, for instance, and calling for a crackdown on these anti-Semitic incidents.
And Alice, we're also hearing about a crackdown on guns. We're hearing for a call on increased gun control in both cases, really, but there are some differences between how Australia does it and how the U.S. does it, right?
Yeah, no question. Australia already has quite strict gun laws, and mass shootings are very rare in that country. They had a huge crackdown a number of years ago when there was a mass shooting. And now, really, just immediately in the wake of, you know, the day after this most recent tragedy there in Australia, already officials are talking about tightening gun laws yet again. So that's just by contrast with how quickly things might move in Australia, where there seems to be not as much difficulty to reach consensus on the direction that they want to take on gun safety. Here in the U.S., there have been many Democratic lawmakers coming forward and speaking about the prevalence of gun violence here, again pressing for gun safety legislation, which is just not likely to happen under the current configuration. But just worth underscoring, one Brown University student was injured in a 2019 shooting at her California high school. Another was in the adjacent middle school during the 2018 Parkland mass shooting. And that is just how common these are.
I can't believe that. Alice, thanks. Meanwhile, the search for that suspect continues. Appreciate that report.